Today's episode is all about how to keep your mind sharp and your body performing at its best, something we all need, especially when life and business get demanding. You'll learn how to improve your cognitive health, why sleep is such a game changer, how stress slowly chips away at your focus, and the simple daily habits that can help you stay clear-headed and energized. We'll also touch on gut health, exercise, and the mindset shifts that keep you at your peak, no matter your age or stage of life. And it's a conversation full of practical takeaways you can use right away.
Hey everyone, welcome to Business Unchained, where entrepreneurs and business owners come together to power up on their journey to greatness.
Bobby Masha is the founder and CEO of Greenridge Wealth Planning. All opinions expressed by Bobby and his guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinion of Greenridge Wealth Planning. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any financial decisions. Clients of Greenridge Wealth Planning may maintain positions in any securities discussed in this podcast.
Please welcome today's guest, Dr. David Bardsley.
Do you ever struggle to recall something you had just been thinking about moments ago? Or perhaps you had an idea that was fresh in your mind, but it became clouded before you could take action? Your brain, every brain, is constantly evolving and changing. In fact, there are multiple scientifically proven paths to increasing your memory and IQ at any age through simple life changes. And today, we bring to you Dr. David Bardsley, who we had an amazing conversation, and I heard him speak. And I'm looking forward to really helping some of the, issues that most people have when they start to think about, I don't know about you guys, but like I start to think about peak performance a lot. And maybe it's just because my Instagram feed and the algorithm keeps kicking out all this stuff. But, I think about longevity. I think about my mental clarity. I think about my health and my family and how I can support them. And I have a couple businesses that I have to support the people that are here. So my being around is, I don't know, maybe this is my ego talking, but I think it's pretty important. And I think Doc thinks the same. So Doc, thank you and welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.
Now, one of the things that I just kind of brought into frame, the importance of self-preservation, self-care. Talk to us a little bit about your message when it comes to setting yourself up as an executive for longevity.
Well, first of all, I think we want to focus on three things: health span, wealth span, and lifespan. And you want all those to be the same. You don't want your health span to last until you're 95 and your money runs out at 85. Or you don't want to live to be 92 and your health runs out at 82 in your mental health and your physical health. You can't enjoy life because you're basically a cripple and you can't remember who you are or your family or anything that's important to you. So you want that health span, wealth span, and lifespan to all be the same.
Have you trademarked that? Because I might have to steal it.
All end goals on the same day, if possible, unless you're trying to leave money to your family or to a trust. Otherwise, you don't want any of those to run out before the other two.
So what took you down this journey, down this quest to really speaking to people and getting this message? What was the start of your journey in speaking and educating?
I had a very interesting story when I was younger, but a number of years ago, probably about 15 years ago, I guess it was about 15, I was in a grocery store and I went to the bulk food section and I purchased some granola. And then I went to look for the pen to write the number, the bin number, because if you go to the bulk food section, they have a display of all the different products, and they usually have a number underneath. So when you put the product in the plastic bag, you're supposed to write the number on the bag, often referred to as a bin number, so that the cashier at front knows what to punch in. So I selected the granola, I put it in the bag, I put the label on it, and then I looked for the pen. Well, some clown had taken the pen. And I thought, well, it's no big deal. It's just a 5-digit number. I can certainly remember that. 65843, 65843, 65843, 65843. I got it. So I threw the granola in my basket, went on and did a little bit more shopping. 5-10 minutes later, now I'm up at the front of the store. It's a Friday afternoon, huge lineups. I get in the back of one of these lines and I slowly make my way through into the cashier. And finally I get there and she's a young girl and she's really impatient. She starts scanning my products really, really quickly. And then finally she grabs a granola and she looks for the bin number. And I said, look, I'm sorry, I didn't write the number on there because, well, somebody's taken the pen. But the number for that granola is 6538. No, 638, 6538. And while I'm fumbling, trying to remember the number, I can hear someone at the back of the line. They kind of snicker, and it's like he's having a senior moment.
Oh, geez.
And everybody in that line chuckled. I didn't chuckle.
No,
I
that's
was
terrible.
completely humiliated. And when I got out to my car afterwards, I just sat there for a few minutes and I thought, what just happened in there? I'm 58 years old. How can I be having a senior moment? And to make matters worse, it was just 2 weeks to the day before that I sat beside my mother in the psychiatrist's office while she received the devastating diagnosis, Alzheimer's.
Wait,
I
that
was
was 2 weeks prior
Yep,
to this incident?
absolutely. And I was clearly worried for her future and for my own. And it was literally the next day that I started my intensive investigation into what causes cognitive decline and what, if anything, can we do about that. And what I discovered was absolutely amazing, and it was transformative for me. Because when I went to school, we were taught that when that degradation starts, there's just nothing that you can do about it. Just hope for the best. And that was the medical teaching 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But all the latest neuroscience is showing us that that's completely false now. There are lots of things we can do, not just to guard, but to actually improve our cognitive ability from what it is right now. Now, does that mean you can change an 80-year-old brain back into a 30-year-old brain? No, that's not going to happen. But whether
Mhm.
you're 30, 40, 60, 80, 90 years of age, there are things you can do today to improve your cognitive ability over what it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it through the years. It's, "Oh, take your ginkgo biloba," and it's
Yep.
changed from supplements to memory tests or strengthening your memory to, so I don't even know what it is today, and that's what I'm hoping you can kinda share with us because I know you took us through a couple of different, cognitive tests.
Right.
And I thought that was super interesting just to enlighten. And I know that you have them on your website, but it was a little
Yeah.
enlightening to see. Okay, well, how much do you remember at the beginning, and how much do you remember
Yeah,
more toward
sure.
the end?
And there are different types of memory. There are visual memory. There's audio memory. Remembering what you hear versus what you see.
Mhm.
I don't have a very good audio memory. If I were to ask you, hey Bobby, where's the nearest Starbucks? And you said, oh well, just go out the door here, turn to the left, and onto the first set of lights, make another left-hand turn, go 2 blocks, and it's like stop right there. I'm lost already. I
Is
have
that because
no idea.
now?
But
Why
if
is
you
that?
drew
Is
me a little map, a little sketch, and showed it to me, I look at it once and I've got that. Right? I know I'm not an audio learner. I don't remember very much what people tell me. I remember what I see. And
now
so
is that
we all have different patterns of learning.
is that always the case? Is it is distraction or stress or a full mind have anything to do with it, or do people
Oh,
typically just
a-
have a specific way that they are always more?
well, people tend to be grouped into either verbal, visual, or tactile learners. Most of us are a combination of those, but usually we'll tend to have one that's stronger than the other. But and it's one of the unfortunate things in our schooling system. So, perhaps you're a visual learner and you're in grade 3, grade 2 or grade 3, and you're a visual learner, but the teacher teaches all the lessons verbally. You're
Yeah.
not going to get that so much. And you're going to be, well, he's not particularly smart. He didn't really catch on to what we were saying. And yet if they drew it out on the board or showed you pictures, or showed you a PowerPoint with that information, you would get it. We have different ways that we learn.
Yeah, I remember
We have
that was one
different
of the
strengths.
struggles, or not so struggles, but I didn't like lectures in college as much as I liked the interactive learning of being in a classroom or working in small groups or breaking out into into our own private groups. So I definitely can agree with you or can
Yeah.
relate to you when it comes to take a right at the second light and then turn left and then
we we don't all learn the same way. It's good to know what your strength is and try to work toward learning that way.
Now, when do you typically see that people have this, mild cognitive impairment, this MCI, where they at what age where they start to, I guess, lose some of their capabilities, or maybe it might not be like a pre-dementia thing, but it is a life age stress, whatever it might be.
Right.
When does the onset of that typically happen for?
So generally, when you're born, you have this marvelous big brain. And that brain has about 100 billion brain cells, 100 billion, and will continue to grow and get physically larger and larger in size, and up until about puberty. And then it stops getting physically bigger, but it continues to mature. So what do we mean by that? Well, by then you've got about 100 billion brain cells, but those brain cells will continue to send out branches to connect to other brain cells. So each brain cell can have up to 7,000 to 8,000 branches that reaches out to connect to other brain cells. And that makes up the incredible human neural network. And that process will take place until about our late 20s. And then your brain is fully developed, it's fully mature. And then if you're lucky, your brain will stay pretty much the same for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And that's when the problem starts. You're losing, two things are happening. You're losing brain cells at a truly, truly alarming rate. They're just dying off, and we don't know why they do that, but they die off about 70 to 90,000 per day. That's about 1 per second. And those branches connecting the brain cells start to come apart. And when those two things happen, our brain starts to slow down. And that's called mild cognitive impairment. And so for some people, it may occur in their early 30s. Other people, it may be their late 30s. But generally within the decade of the 30s, you'll start to see some slowdown of brain function.
So how do you combat that when you're in the throes of life? I could assume that abusing alcohol is probably not helpful to that, but
No, that's a very good point. And it's interesting that you use the word abusing. So there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that you can drink a certain amount of alcohol and it will have no negative effect on your brain.
really.
The bad news is the amount of alcohol that you consume. So when you consume alcohol, first of all, it doesn't go into your intestine. It gets passed right through the wall of your stomach, and it goes directly into your the blood supply to your liver. And your liver has an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase, which breaks down the molecules of alcohol, and they get excreted in your urine. It never gets to your brain. If you deliver too much alcohol to your liver, it doesn't have enough of the enzyme to break it all down. And so some of that alcohol will pass through unchanged into your blood supply. And in 20, 30 seconds, it's circulated and it crosses the blood-brain barrier. And you'll know when that's happened.
Because that's when you get the buzz.
You'll feel the buzz, exactly. So if you don't feel the buzz, it means that your liver has broken down the alcohol and it's not doing any damage to your brain. As far as we know, no amount of alcohol is good for your brain. Now, in neuroscience, there's no way of putting a miniature imaging device into a living brain to see what happens to living brain tissue when it comes into contact with a molecule of alcohol. But they can grow human brain cells, human neurons, quite easily in petri dishes in the laboratory and add one little drop of alcohol. Instantaneously, 100% of those brain cells will shrivel up and die. But we can't prove that happens in the brain. We have no means of putting a miniature imaging device into the living brain of any animal to see that. So a small amount of alcohol is okay, no problem there. But if you feel the buzz, you know that you've overdone it.
Well, I bring up booze because I know, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people, a lot of families. This post-COVID era, I feel like people drink more than they ever.
I would agree with you, particularly as you said, post-COVID, because that's where they really, it fast forwarded during COVID for sure.
I know that I am. The people I talk to are always looking for ways that they can improve their health, improve their memory, improve their physical appearance, their performance at work, their ability to, take on stress or deal with stress. What are some of the things that you in your studies have found are helpful to those people who might be in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're saying to themselves, I know I'm not as cognitively aware as I used to be. I didn't think that there was a way for me to really improve that. I thought it just was going to be what it is going to be. but there's something I could do. What is it that I can do? How do I work toward this?
Okay, so there's two things. One is there are certain things we can do, which we can talk about, that will stimulate the growth of new brain cells and make your brain work better. And then you actually have to stop doing some of the things that make your brain work more slowly. And one of the most important of those is sleep. And everybody knows that sleep is important. Yes, it's important to get sleep. But the studies are incredible. You can be given the most comprehensive and the most commonly used IQ test in the English-speaking language is one called the Stanford Binet IQ test. And you can be given that test today, and you'll get a particular score. You get 5 hours sleep tonight, and you take that exact same test tomorrow, and your test scores will plummet. Now, have you damaged your brain permanently? No. So if you get a good night's sleep the next night or the next 2 nights, your test scores will come back up again. But you have to understand, if you don't get adequate sleep, you're not as smart the next day. It's just that simple.
You know what was super interesting to me? And I'm just going to look back because I want to make sure that I have this number correct. When we had our conversation, you had mentioned that there are 250,000 deaths that are accidental deaths at hospitals a year.
That's correct.
And you drew the correlation of that old school, tough, make your bones, earn your stripes, doctors and nurses that are there working dozens of hours, and and the relationship with their cognitive ability to kind of act in the moment, and these deaths at these hospitals. And I know just from the work that I do is not life or death scenarios, but that was pretty impactful to me. And so much so that I bought a new scale, one of the ones where you hold on and you can tell all your measurements. I got a new Whoop, so I'm wearing the Whoop and I'm following my sleep and repair. But sleep that's a big deal.
It's critically important, absolutely critically important. And the good thing about it is it's one of the easiest things to restore. It's one of the simplest things to restore. And it's one of the easiest things we can do to make our brain actually work better. It's sleep. We can talk about exercise. Exercise takes effort. Sleep doesn't take any effort whatsoever.
What about for people who are stressed out? For the people who are they just inherently wake up at 5:30 in the morning because they know they have a lot that they have to accomplish, or maybe they're sitting and lying in bed and they just can't fall asleep. I know my wife is dealing with perimenopausal stuff, and for her, it's hard to sleep. And when she doesn't get enough sleep, it definitely impacts her mood and her ability to perform the next day. How do we work in our crazy world to make sure that we're getting enough sleep?
So first of all, we have to deal with that stress. And as you mentioned, sleep is absolutely critical to have a stress-free life. And you just can't work on, 4 or 5, 6 hours sleep a night. That's just not enough. So how do you get that good sleep? And the first thing that the science has shown that your body temperature is one of the critical factors. If you can lower your core temperature by 1 to 3 degrees, you will get a better quality and quantity night's sleep. That's what animals that hibernate do. They have the ability to drop their core temperature by 2 to 3 degrees for months and months at a time. Well, we humans can't do that, but we can certainly drop our core temperature. And one of the easiest ways to do that is just to turn down the ambient temperature in the room that you're sleeping.
So you're saying like 90, like drop it down to like 95, 96 degrees, your body. Is that?
Oh, no, it's got to be way colder than that. It's got to be like 60 to 66 degrees.
You're saying that the ambient temperature.
Yeah.
But your body temperature just drop.
Yeah, you want to drop your body temperature down. Yeah, absolutely. Down to 94 and 95 degrees. And all the science shows that you'll get a better and a deeper night's sleep. I mean, you can get in an ice bath and that'll drop your core temperature really quickly, but you're never going to fall asleep in that ice bath. So when the room temperature is that low, I mean, you're going to have put on an extra blanket or an extra cover. You don't want to be there shivering because you're not going to be able to sleep. And all you want is your head sticking out of the bed clothing. And what you're doing is you're breathing in cold air into your lungs, cools down your blood, which circulates through your lungs, and then that circulates throughout the rest of your body, including your brain, and drops your overall core temperature. And we know study after study has shown it's one of the best ways there is to improve the quality and quantity of your sleep is drop your core temperature.
What about the people who say, I don't need that much sleep? I only need 5 hours of sleep and I'm good.
Kind
Is
of-
that do people have that circadian rhythm where they just don't need to sleep that and they fall asleep when
Yes,
they sleep?
there are, but it's very, very rare. They're just used to that. And they think, well, I'm performing at my cognitive best. I'm performing at my physical best. I just don't need more sleep than that. And the bottom line is they're used to it. But if they got more sleep, they would perform even better. And there are some people who don't need that amount of sleep, but they're rare. And when I say rare, I'm not talking about 1% of the population. I'm talking about a small fraction of 1%.
Okay.
So you can get by or you can perform at your optimum best. Like, the choice is yours. And there
So
are
if you're
lots
sitting
of
here,
things you can do to help get that sleep.
so if you're sitting here listening, going like, I'm good. I get enough sleep. You probably don't. You're probably not one of those fractional of a percent people. You probably should just give it a shot if you want to
That's
make
right.
sure that you're working at your potential.
And so the other thing you look at is, well, how well do you feel throughout the day? Do you wake up with energy? Do you have energy all day long? When I have a big lag, like at 11 o'clock in the morning, and man, you're ready to have a nap? Or are you able to stay energized throughout the day until 8, 9, 10 o'clock of that evening when you're ready to go to bed again?
Now, the one thing that I found, which is, I don't know, this might be, one-to-one consulting now, but the one thing I found is I've been working on this Whoop thing and my sleep has been really strong over the past couple of days. I've actually found myself to be more tired. I don't know if that's because I'm working out more and trying to, eat differently, or if that's a function of, am I getting too much sleep?
And what does it show you? How many hours of sleep are you getting on average?
A little over 8 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's good. That's very good. And if you find that you are a little bit more tired, you have to look at, what am I doing? Am I working out too much, or am I exceeding that? And how long have you felt that way?
Yeah.
And then you can say, well, I'll try to build up a little more slowly. I won't try to just jump in and do everything all at once to get it started.
Now, what about like caffeine and stuff like that?
So, yeah. So I like caffeine.
All right, it's fine. No problems.
Right? Yeah. You don't want to have it anytime past midday, because, caffeine gets into your system, and you'd have a coffee, and some people drink so much caffeine that they say, well, I'm immune to the effects of it. But I enjoy my cappuccino in the morning, maybe even one at noon, but after 1 o'clock, I have decaf. And it's good. It doesn't act as it's not a direct stimulant. It's what we call a backdoor stimulant, because you have a chemical. The minute you wake up, your brain starts to produce a chemical called adenosine. Your brain cells have a receptor for that adenosine. And adenosine builds up what we call sleep pressure. It slowly makes you feel tired, makes you feel drowsy, like you want to have some sleep. And the minute you wake up in the morning, your brain starts to produce adenosine, and it attaches to the adenosine receptor. And the more adenosine that attaches to the adenosine receptors on your brain cells, the more tired you feel. And that's why it slowly builds up this pressure, what they call sleep pressure, which is just your desire to actually fall asleep. And it does that throughout the day. Well, adenosine and caffeine chemically are very, very similar. They're so similar that the receptor for the adenosine gets tricked by the caffeine. So the caffeine will attach to the adenosine receptor, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't make you start to feel sleepy. So it blocks that receptor, so that even if you have adenosine in your system, it doesn't work. And that's how I call it, a backdoor stimulant. It works by slowing down the chemical that makes you feel sleepy, that builds up what's called sleep pressure.
If you find yourself, midday, 4 or 5 o'clock, getting tired, do you think just the better natural course is like, see if you could take a 20-minute power nap, or, you're saying don't drink coffee after 12? Is there, what are ways that we can,
if you're crashing late in the afternoon, I would absolutely not drink coffee. It'll end up affecting how you sleep later on that night. And I wouldn't do a power nap late in the day, in the morning a bit if you need some, up until noon. The problem is if you have a power nap late in the afternoon, it's going to affect the quality of your sleep that night. So you're better off to
Just move.
move. Now,
Okay.
doesn't mean you have to go to the gym or you have to, go out and run 10K, but just get up and walk. Just change the environment that you're in and just move. Go for a 10 or 15-minute brisk walk. And you'll find it'll reset everything. It will make a tremendous difference.
So outside of sleep, what are some of the other things that we can do to enhance our cognitive ability to process?
So I just mentioned, movement, exercise, but it has to be more than just a walk. And what that does is
So the move is just to wake yourself up.
Yeah.
The next step of
exactly.
more than just a walk is
More than just a move, which is
okay.
the exercise. So, when I went through school a gazillion years ago, Bobby, probably before you were born, we were taught that you're given a certain number of brain cells, that's all you ever get.
Mhm.
And they just die off, throughout the rest of your life. And now we've shown that that's not true, that you can grow new brain cells at literally any stage of life. And one of the things that stimulates the growth of new brain cells is a biochemical, which is produced by you doing physical exercise. It's called brain-derived neurotropic factor. And it stimulates the stem cells.
Brain-derived
BDNF is
neurotropic,
called
BDNF.
brain-derived neurotropic factor. And
Okay.
this is released from your brain because you have dormant stem cells in your brain that have been there since you were an infant, and they never went on to form a new brain cell. And we don't know why they didn't do that. Maybe, who knows, maybe in the grand design of things, they were left there so we could use them later in life. But along comes some BDNF, it comes into contact with this dormant stem cell, and it immediately starts to grow into a new brain cell. And that BDNF is liberated from areas of your brain, and it stimulates the release of it, what stimulates vigorous physical exercise. And there's a second factor called insulin-like growth factor that also stimulates the growth of new brain cells. The insulin-like growth factor isn't released from your brain, it's released from your skeletal muscles during exercise. It gets into your bloodstream, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it stimulates the growth of those dormant stem cells to become new brain cells. And it also
That's
stimulates the branching. So not only does it stimulate the growth of the new cells, but even the cells you have, it stimulates the outgrowth of the branches, because the more branches and the more connections you have between your brain cells, the better your brain works, the better your cognitive ability.
So obviously we can't exercise our way to genius. What are some other things that we can do? I mean, does reading a book really help? Do games really help? Like, what are some other things that we can do?
There haven't really been any good scientific studies that show that challenging your brain doing games. But I would never discourage people from doing that ever. We just haven't had the science to show that those actually make a big difference. Maybe they do. Maybe the studies just haven't been done enough or in depth enough to show that. But I would never ever tell people, hey, that's just a waste of time, because that's just not the case at all. And then we have to look at, how are we slowing our brain down with medications that we're taking? And I got some from the Center for Disease Control, has some incredible statistics on prescription drugs. 1/3 of the population of the United States between the age of 50 and 65, 1 out of 3 people take 2 or more prescription medications on a daily basis.
Really?
And after the age of 65, seniors, the average person over the age of 65 takes 4 prescription medications on a daily basis. And if you just go to the website for those medications and you read the side effects, you'll just be shocked. It'll show you the physical side effects that can occur, but also the mental side effects. Confusion, dizziness, disorientation, cognitive slowdown. And they'll list that right on their website for the drug. You'll look at adverse side effects and you look at them and you'll see are there physical side effects and are there cognitive side effects. And so people just, they just take these drugs and think, well, there's no, they're to cure my arthritis or they're to cure my high blood pressure, or I'm taking the statin because of my cholesterol. We'll read what some of the cognitive issues are with those statins. And so I'm not saying you should never take those medications. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is when somebody hands you a prescription, your first question shouldn't be, hey, doc, can I drink while I take this medicine? Your first question should be, hey, doc, what can I do so that I don't need this? Are there things that I can change in my life so I don't need this medication? And if I absolutely need it, are there things I can do to cut the dosage down by a half or by 2/3? And 9 times out of 10, they'll just look at you and say, look, I gave it to you for a reason. Just fill the damn thing and take the pills. Because he doesn't know or they don't know any better. Unless you get a functional physician or a lifestyle physician, that's a whole different ballgame. And those are MDs who have extra training, and they get it, that your lifestyle is your health and
Right,
your lifestyle is your medicine.
And most doctors, they're on such a regimen to where they have to funnel through so many patients a day because of requirements from either the larger institution that just bought them out, or to meet the profitability because of how much pressure they're getting from the health insurance companies. So that becomes very transactional.
It's a big issue, and they're not taught anything in medical school about it. And so it's both of those things. And it's just incredible. The easiest thing is just to, I go in to see a physician and haven't been in for 2 or 3 years. And you get on the scale, they check your blood pressure, they go through a basic history. And they says, okay, Dave, your cholesterol's up. You put on 30 pounds since you've been here last time. Your blood pressure's up a little bit. I'd suggest you start doing some exercise. And then he'll give you some prescription to get your statin to get your cholesterol down. And then he sends you out of the office.
Yeah,
it's like, well, he said I should start doing some exercise. Well, what exercise should I do, doctor? How often should I do it? To what degree of strength or difficult should I do it? And he has no idea because he wasn't taught that. Unless they write it down and hand it to you. And there is an organization in the United States of physicians called Exercise is Medicine, where they teach physicians how to write out a prescription for exercise.
Well, it's amazing what the human body can do to heal itself. I mean,
Absolutely.
We see it every day. So to your point, the exit strategy and coming off of that medication, most of the times there probably should be. It's just a matter of figuring out what that is.
That's right.
But I have so I was going to a longevity clinic. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they did was a test on my overall, just the micronutrient testing and all these testing. And one of the things that they came back and they said, listen, for someone your age, you're not low on testosterone, but you're on probably the lower of the range. We should probably talk about testosterone replacement if you want to really start to keep that, that physical performance up.
Right.
So I went to my doctor, and the first thing he said to me was, hey, Bobby, you're 205. Typically, you're 185.
Yeah.
Why don't you lose 20 pounds and then we'll talk about this testosterone thing?
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty interesting that even the confliction of like, do you do it? Do you not do it? You go to your doctor. Your doctor says don't do it. You go to another doctor. The doctor says do it. At the end of the day, how do you personally, take that information and digest it to make the right decision for yourself?
So first of all, we'll talk about the hormone thing. It's way more complicated for women. Women's hormones are way more complicated than males' hormones, right? So first, you have to get a profile done of what your hormones are if you're a female, and even if you're male. But testosterone is the main driving hormone in males. So let's take your case, saying you're 205, and let's get down to 180, and then we'll talk about testosterone. That's just wrong. That's 100% wrong. Let's give you some testosterone. Let's get you back up there to where you should be. And then you're going to have the energy to do the physical things and to do the things that are going to be necessary to get that weight back down. That testosterone is the fuel. And it's no good saying, hey, Bobby, you know what? I'm going to suggest you get out there and you start running, 5 miles a day and go to the gym and watch what you eat. And let's get your weight back down to 180 and then come and talk to me about testosterone. That's like saying, hey, get out there and, push your car around and, you go to work, push your car to work. And, then when you get stronger, we'll talk about putting some gasoline in the car so you can drive it to work. That's just, But
That's a great analogy. I was thinking chicken and the egg, but I like that analogy much better.
they're not taught anything about that. So you want to have optimal, and women, we call it menopause. And fortunately, a lot of physicians are better informed about female menopause than they are about andropause. Andropause is the same thing in a male. It's the equivalent to what a woman goes through in menopause. So and the primary hormone we're talking about here is testosterone. So if it's down, if you're in a male andropause, rather, it's so difficult to improve things physically until you get that level back up. So it's not, hey, don't go out there and lose the weight and get in shape, and then we're going to talk to you about testosterone supplementation. It's like, let's do it the proper way. Let's get the testosterone up, and now you're going to have the energy and the strength to do those other things. They're just looking at it backwards. Absolutely backwards.
Well, there's a lot of things that we're dealing with backwards. So you had said there are things that you should do, and there are definitely things that you shouldn't do. I know
Yeah.
we spoke a little bit about alcohol. We talked about sleep. We talked a little bit about exercise, which branched into then, testosterone and hormone
Right.
replacement therapy.
Yeah.
But what else are we missing out of this big picture for people who are saying, I want to be at peak performance. I want to be able to keep that mental clarity for as long as I possibly can, or improve it. What are we missing here?
So the other thing you have to do, you have to look at stress. And certainly, sleep and exercise are two of your biggest weapons against stress. But still, even with those, people can still be stressed. So the bottom line is, if you can't deal with the stress by yourself, get professional help. Get a therapist, get professional help to deal with the stress. It will make everything else in your life so much easier. And then
So is that like a therapist? Is that like a business coach if you're an entrepreneur? Is that meditation, yoga?
That depends. If the major cause of your stress is your business, then get a business coach. And in other words, just get a psychotherapist or a therapist, and they'll help you deal with that stress. And certain sleep and exercise are your two biggest weapons against stress, but there are a lot of other things. There are a lot of people who are dealing with it all by themselves, and particularly men, we tend to keep things to ourselves. So if we're having problems, we often see it as a sign of weakness to complain to your friends about, the issues that you're going through. It's like, hey, come on, you're a man, man up, toughen up and deal with it, right? And that's just the absolute worst. And
power through it.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of having social support is so critical. And some people don't have the friends that they can rely on, for that social support. Well, then pay somebody to be your friend. That's what you're doing with the therapist, right? It's someone who's willing to listen to you and then perhaps make some suggestions. But more than anything, they're willing to listen to you. And that's what they do, on a professional basis.
So
So there
especially
should be
men, because I feel like women do a better job becoming or getting more vulnerable with friends.
Absolutely.
I find that most men have a very difficult time getting to that place of vulnerability.
And a lot of that is our culture. We use the term man up. What does that mean? Come on, be a man. It's not okay to cry in public. It's not okay to tell somebody else your feelings. It's just no matter what those feelings are. Men are supposed to be isolated. They're supposed to, be this statue by themselves. And women are way better at that social connection. So social connection is really, really important in helping you deal particularly with stress. It's critical.
As you say this, I start to think about some of the concerns or issues that people that we speak to, clients have. And that's a really good, Luciano, you should take a little note here. Longevity. If you want to take the financial stresses away from people, you're going to give them longevity.
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest, stress is a killer, right? And it goes stress, anxiety, depression, suicide. Nobody commits suicide. It's rare that somebody commits suicide without first being depressed. And the number one cause of suicide in adults in America is a financial crisis.
Really?
Financial crisis, not for women, not for teens, even male teens, but in adult males, the number one cause of suicide in America is a financial crisis.
That's a big deal.
It's a very big deal. And that starts right up at the top. So it goes stress, anxiety, depression, and then suicide. That doesn't mean everyone who's depressed is going to commit suicide, but virtually nobody commits suicide without first being depressed.
Yeah, and I think that if you just
Downward cascade. So you need to deal with it right at the top rung, which is stress.
do you have any numbers or any concept of how many adults walk around undiagnosed with some sort of depression or anxiety?
No, that's a very good question. I don't know that. I haven't come across that, like one out of, whatever we're saying, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 20, 1 out of 60. And the problem is, it's most of the cases are not diagnosed.
Yeah,
It's not
and it
diagnosed
manifests in
until-
different ways, right?
Most people who are depressed have never been diagnosed with depression. So we only know the numbers of those people that have sought treatment. And we can say, okay, there's a case of clinical depression. And, this is the population and this is how many cases were diagnosed in the population. But most people who are depressed have never been diagnosed with clinical depression.
Now, do you ever find that I'm assuming that there are multiple ways that depression can manifest. And
Absolutely.
I'm sure that there's maybe some blurred lines in terms of stress or, let's just call it life versus depression.
Sure.
What are some of the telltale signs that if you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know if I'm depressed, I kind of feel like I might be depressed, but I'm not sure.
Well, one of the things with depression is you don't enjoy things that you used to enjoy. So, if you used to enjoy whatever, going to the theater, or you used to enjoy going to a ball game, or you used to enjoy, going dancing with your wife, or whatever it is, you used to enjoy, going playing poker with the boys every 2 weeks. And you no longer enjoy those things that used to give you pleasure.
Is that enjoyment in the sense of I go to the theater with my wife and I don't enjoy it while I'm there? Or does that also stem from maybe the concept of the thought of it? I don't really enjoy it when I think about it, not knowing that if you actually went and did it, you may find yourself enjoyment. It just might be a period.
Well, it's just broadly looking at, you don't get pleasure out of the things that once gave you pleasure. And whether those things are cognitive things or whether they're physical things, you just don't enjoy the things that used to give you pleasure do not give you pleasure anymore.
And that impacts stress, and that impacts your ability to process, your ability to sleep. It seems like it's a spiraling thing.
It's a cascade. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a cascade. So that's one of the first things. And people who are depressed are not usually excited about anything. Their emotions go flat. They're never really happy. They never get angry, even when things occur in their life which should make them happy or should make them angry. And they don't. Their lifeline it goes flat. And lots of times when people are depressed, they don't even want to get out of bed. They don't want to have to face whatever is waiting for them. When they wake up in the morning, they just don't want to get out of bed. And then the other thing is they don't want to deal with whatever it is in their life that needs to be dealt with. They just don't want to deal with it. It's when you see someone who's clinically depressed, it's the saddest thing I've ever seen. Saddest thing I've ever seen. I'd rather see, people in a wheelchair smiling than someone who's, the body works perfectly and yet they're in a deep depression. They'll suffer more than the person in the wheelchair.
Now, there's a lot of, when you think about your mind health, we've spoken a lot on podcasts and in my book and about, kind of like that gut intuition, your mind, that gut feeling that makes you or helps you to make decisions.
Yeah.
I know that you also bring the gut health or that intuition that I don't know what to really call it, but
follow your gut.
Follow your gut.
Follow your gut. Your gut is seldom wrong.
How do you feed that to keep that whole system kind of going? Because I know that there's obviously some ingesting of the right nutrients and having the right diet that impacts a lot of this stuff as well.
Right. Well, the important factor there that we're talking about is really your gut microbiome. And your gut microbiome is all the microbes that are in your gut. You have about 10 times more gut microbes than you do actual cells that make up your entire body. But for the most part, you're talking about bacteria. and it's the type of bacteria that are growing in your gut. There are nerves that connect your brain to your gut, and your gut, when we're talking about gut, we're basically talking about your intestines, not so much your stomach.
Mhm.
And you talk about your intestines, and there are nerves that connect your brain to your intestines. And the biggest one is called your vagus nerve. It's your 10th cranial nerve. You've got 12 cranial nerves coming out of your brain on each side. All the other nerves in your body come off your spinal cord. All the nerves to every part of your body, your shoulders, your hands, your feet, your legs, your everything, they come off your spinal cord. There are 12 nerves in each side that are direct extensions of your brain. The biggest of those is the 10th cranial nerve, and it supplies your lungs, it supplies your heart, it supplies your intestines.
That's so
And
crazy to think about.
so what is we used to think, well, the signals go from your brain down to your intestine to tell your intestine what to do, when to contract muscles, and that is true. But now we know it's two-way, that your gut sends signals to your brain. In fact, it's now known that in that cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, way more signals are sent from your gut to your brain than your brain sends to your gut. And we realize now that gut microbiome has a tremendous impact on how you feel and how you perform cognitively.
So
And
what are
that-
those what are those signals?
there are electronic signals that are sent from the walls of your intestine saying, hey, like, what's going on here? So we have two major systems. We have the autonomic nervous system, has two parts. One part is stimulate you. So for instance, adrenaline will stimulate you. It gets everything heightened, it gets everything moving. Then you have another section of your autonomic nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system is called the rest and digest system. It helps you relax and it helps you digest. You want to stimulate that part of the system that helps you rest and digest. And so the nervous system, parts of it speed you up, parts of it slow you down. You don't want to be stuck in either one of those situations. You want it to stimulate you when it's necessary, and you want to help it slow you down and be calm and rest when that's called for, when that's necessary. So it's not one or the other. But in neuroscience now, they're actually referring to the gut microbiome as your second brain. And so when I say the gut microbiome, I didn't say gut, because your gut is basically your intestines.
Mhm.
I'm saying gut
Gut
microbiome. It's those bacteria mainly that we're talking about, those bacteria that sit inside your gut and produce so many chemicals that will affect how your body works and how your brain works. So having that in balance, that's really, really important. And there
So is
are
that
lots of
is the
things
trick
that can
to
throw it out
that
of balance.
is the trick to that like feeding it to keep it in balance?
Yes,
Or
yes, it is. First of all, it's recognizing when it is out of balance. And then the second thing is your diet and nutrition. But sometimes you have to reset it. So for instance, if you take a course of antibiotics, you've got a dysbiosis. I can guarantee you 100%. If you take 5 days or a week or 2 weeks of any antibiotic, you've changed your gut microbiome. You've altered it from what it should be naturally. You've got to reset it. If you look at, are you traveling in different parts of the world? And different parts of the world, even I'm not talking about going to third world countries, but if you go to other countries, the water supply is different, the food is different, the bacteria are different that you're ingesting, and this going to upset your gut microbiome.
you know what's
And
interesting, Doc? My son has he has liver disease and Crohn's colitis.
yep,
And we struggled. It was autoimmune diseases that kind of popped up
yep, sure,
post COVID.
yep,
And we struggled going from facility to facility to figure out what was going on, doctor to doctor. We were down in CHOP, and then we got referred over to a doctor who has been at the forefront of his space for decades. And we sat with him, and he said, "You know what? This is not really, indicated for your son's issue. But what we found is if we can reset his microbiome,
Yep.
by putting him not only on antibiotics, but keeping him on a consistent antibiotic regimen for a long period of time, we may be able to subside some of the issues that he's having right now. And antibiotic on the other side of, where you said it resets your gut and it could screw up the balance. It can also put you in balance if you're in a real imbalance situation on the other end of the spectrum, which I found to be fascinating.
Sure. If you've got a lot of, we call them bad bacteria, you've got to get rid of those.
Mm-hmm.
And the antibiotic will do that. But then when
that's how strong your system is in
Right.
terms of keeping your whole body in
But then
balance.
when you finish, you want to reestablish a healthy gut microbiome. So anytime, and knock on wood, very rarely have to take an antibiotic, but if I do, then I reset my gut microbiome. And just recently, I had 5 weeks ago today, actually, I had a shoulder replacement. And they don't give you a prescription for an antibiotic afterwards because it's a sterile procedure. But at the end of that procedure, they put a huge bolus of antibiotic into the IV, and you get that big bolus. They don't even tell you that afterwards. So I had to go back and contact them and say, did I get an antibiotic at the end of that procedure? And
So how do you reset it?
So there are various ways of doing that. And if you go online, you'll see just on YouTube or online how to reset your gut microbiome. Most of it involves some form of fasting. And some of the fasts are 5 days, 7 days. I can't do a 5 or 7 day fast. I just can't. I'm a fast burner. I need a lot of calories. Mm-hmm. So I do it over a 3-day period. So the first thing I do is I go and buy what's called a probiotic. And a probiotic is just a very concentrated form of bacteria. And you can buy it at any pharmacy will sell a probiotic. And
so what's the difference between a probiotic and a prebiotic?
Okay, very good question. So a probiotic is actually bacteria themselves, billions and billions of bacteria. You can get it in capsule form. You can get it in a thick liquid form where you take it by the spoonful. That's live bacteria. Bacteria, for the most part, the food for bacteria is fiber. So what a prebiotic is, it's just fiber. So the science goes like this. If you're taking billions and billions of bacteria, and what you want is those bacteria to stick to your intestine and start to form a colony so that they grow healthy colonies of bacteria in your intestine, which you're going to live with throughout your life. I mean, that's without our bacteria, we die very quickly. We need that bacteria. So they're saying, okay, if you're fasting and you're only taking this probiotic, which is just billions and billions and billions of bacteria, what are those bacteria going to eat to stay healthy and then start growing on your intestinal wall? Well, they eat fiber. So a prebiotic is just fiber. So it's the food for the probiotic bacteria.
That was it. So it sounds like it's pretty necessary to take them both together. Is that how it works?
You're better off to take them both together. Absolutely. And you want to give it every chance it can to recolonize that bacteria. So it's not a one and done. It's not, so you'll get the bacteria and it'll say 30 billion or 50 billion live bacteria. And whether it's a capsule, I go toward the liquid rather than the capsule. I just don't know, how old is that capsule? And, what food is in other words, are there 50 billion live bacteria in that dried up capsule? And then if you get the liquid form, it's always refrigerated, and it's a gooey, sticky liquid.
Sounds amazing.
It sounds like it's got a lot more bacteria. What I do is then I use a product called kefir. Kefir by itself is a probiotic. It's just a liquid form of yogurt, but it has a much higher concentration of live bacteria than regular yogurt does. Okay. So and it has calories. I need those calories to get through my day. I can't just take the probiotic and water with it. That's not, I just can't do that. So I mix the two of them together. I take the probiotic, I put it right into the kefir. I put a little bit of flavor in it, mix it up. It's got about 600 calories per quart, and I'll drink 2 or 3 of those a day for 3 days. And so I've fasted from solid food, but I'm not hungry because I'm still getting, over 2,000 calories a day.
So if you're thinking about this, right, fasting, or you can go online, like you said, and you can reset your gut, How do you know when you're out of balance? How do you what is your body typically
So
telling you? Or
you'll have a lot of flatulence, you'll have a lot of bloating, you'll have stomach aches, you'll feel your noise from your stomach. Any of those symptoms are very obvious ones that there's something wrong with your stomach. The other thing you can look at are what are the systemic results from it. What's your energy level? So let's assume that you're getting, a decent night's sleep each night, and you're doing a little bit of physical activity, but you still don't have any energy. Well, you want to start looking at, well, why don't I have energy? And it's because your digestion is being affected, and it's being affected because your gut microbiome is out of whack. And you can go online and you can go on Amazon and order a test. And so they'll send you the little test kit. Gives you use some feces. So after you've wiped yourself with the toilet paper, you just take a little dab of it at the end of a Q-tip, which they come with. It goes into a test tube. You screw it tight. You send it back to the lab, and they'll send you a very comprehensive view of what your gut microbiome is.
what is that
And
called? What's that test called?
it's just called a gut microbiome test. And there are
That's it?
different companies. Yeah.
Okay.
There are different companies to do it. The test costs anywhere between $150, and they send you back a beautiful, easy to understand report of your gut microbiome. And you can see whether you have a dysbiosis, whether you don't. It's like, here are all the friendly bacteria that we found, and here's the percentage we found. Here are the unfriendly bacteria, and here's the percentage that we found. And then they'll often say, based on your sample, these are symptoms that you're probably experiencing. And
Interesting.
you can look at it and go, well, yeah, I have that, or I have that, or I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that. And it's based on your sample. And it's not done in doctor speak, it's done in plain English.
So let me ask you a question. Do you prescribe to doing this in any sort of frequency? Is there anything to where you say like you should do this once a year,
So,
or you
so
really just do it as needed?
yeah, so you should do it every time when you finish a course of antibiotics. Every
Okay.
time you finish a course of antibiotics, you should do it. Then you have to look at it. Have I had a major change in the ecology surrounding me? And in other words, where have I been? So for my 75th birthday, I went to a southern part of Africa and did a month-long motorcycle trip, driving through the desert and sand. I hate sand on the motorcycle. I never liked it when I went, and I like it even less now. I drove sand. And the food we had was delicious food, but it was not the same food. It's not the same bacteria as my gut is used to. So when I got home, I didn't even wait to see, am I having any symptoms? I just immediately reset it. And then 3 months ago, I was down the tip of South America for 3 weeks. And again, delicious food, but the microbes that are growing in the soil there aren't the same as the microbes that are growing in the soil where I am here in Nova Scotia. And
Yeah.
so, and the food that I eat, the food that I consume is having different microbes. I'm not necessarily saying they're bad, but they're just different. So I want to get my system back into what it's used to and what it's used to living in this environment that I'm living in here. So
So
again,
would
I
you say if
reset
it's
my gut
even if it's
microbiome.
not as exotic, if it's like say it's Caribbean or it's Florida or California
Yeah.
where you're on the
Then
other
I wouldn't do
no,
it.
okay.
No. But I was in some pretty different places in Uruguay.
If you're feeling like this is a lot different than what we're
This is
typically used
exactly.
to
This
in
is a lot
okay.
different, right? Exactly. Then I would reset the gut microbiome. If I went to Europe or whatever, I wouldn't. If I went to Australia, I really wouldn't do it.
So is there anything else when you think about this whole path and learning and trying to get your arms around everything that has to do with this mild cognitive impairment issue that most people suffer? What are we missing from the conversation? Have we kind of hit every really big
Yeah, we've
marker
hit
or
most of the major ones. The other thing is you need to protect your brain. You need to protect your brain, and even a mild concussion. Mild concussions will show up on particular imaging devices 30 years later, 40 years later. You never totally heal from a concussion. So the ideally, you want to protect that. You want to protect your brain. And well, yeah, I guess it was probably 10. It was about not quite 10 years ago. I fell off a skateboard and I pulled the tendon from my quadricep off of my kneecap.
oh
So when that When that happens, a big ball forms at the top of your leg, and that's your quadricep, and you can't move your leg.
You were 66 when this happened?
68.
68.
And I was racing my nephew to the tennis court on these skateboards. Anyway, I came off the skateboard and then I remember laying there, having the surgery, and the surgeon starts yelling at me about, why are you doing this? What you had no business being on skateboard at 68. But I had a helmet on, and I had a good helmet on, right? That's just a little floozy one. And so you can fix your body is pretty fixable. What they can do today, your body is incredible. There is no fixing your head. There's really nothing they can do. So if you have a concussion, for instance, all they do is say, stay in the dark room and don't have any stimulation. Don't listen to music. Don't have any loud noises. Turn the lights off or turn them down. Just no stimulation. That's all you can really do for a concussion. If a concussion is really bad and your brain starts to swell, well, they drill a couple of little holes in the side of your head to let your brain herniate out as it swells, so it doesn't build up pressure inside your head and damage it. There's really not much treatment that they can do. Now, if you break a blood vessel and a clot forms, they can open up your skull and go in and remove that. That's pretty drastic. It can be done. Arms, legs, other parts of your body are pretty easily repaired today, but not your brain. So the bottom line is, whatever you're doing, you need to protect your brain. And I see people all the time. I see families out, husband, wife, 3 little kids, and the kids have got their pink helmets on, their adorable little pink bikes, and the streamers, the whole deal. And they're the parents with their sunglasses on and their baseball hat turned on backwards.
Yeah.
And all it takes is one incident, and it can change your life forever.
Yeah. And it's not even something that you do. Could be something that pops out at you and
of course,
you have no control over it.
Of course, has nothing to do with you. Absolutely. Right? Not your fault in the least. Doesn't make any difference. That's a little consequence when you have a brain injury. Do not heal well, particularly older brains do not heal well.
So you do a lot of speaking on this stuff.
I do.
And, what is your target audience when you're looking to get in front of people? What are the people that are sitting in the audience listening to who it is and to what it is you have to say? And who are the people who are looking to hire someone?
For a lot of the ones I do, like the one you heard is with a business organization, but I speak to all kinds of groups in different ages. A couple of months ago, a dental company contacted me. They said, hey, we got 250 employees. We got 27 dental offices, and we heard about you, and what would you do? How could you help us? I said, well, how much time will you give me? Because the more time I have, the bigger impact it will make on your audience. And they said, well, how much time do you want? And I said, well, I want a whole day. Yeah, 7 hours. And they said, well, how much do you charge? And I said, that's inconsequential to the lost revenue that you're going to have by closing down 27 dental offices for a whole day. And the CEO just said, oh my God, you're right. It's going to cost us a fortune to shut down for a whole day. But that's what they did. They shut down for a whole day. So
and you took them through a whole wellness conversation.
We do this talk. I do the one that you heard, Smarter Next Year. Then we have an hour break for lunch. Then we do 2 hours on stress and stress management, teach people how to recognize stress, how to deal with it. And then the last hour is in nutrition and a lot of what we just talked about, the gut microbiome. And so it's a 7-hour day. It's called the Wellness Day. And it's my favorite thing. But, you get hired. I just got hired by a real estate company yesterday to do a talk. They're having in Eastern Canada, they're having all their people come to one area for their annual meeting, and they've given me 35 minutes. And I go,
that's it.
Oh, I'm going to have to talk really fast.
You got to grind through that real quick. Yeah.
So you can only hit the salient points, but it's better than not at all.
You have 2 books. One is specifically geared toward parenting with a story in how you grew up, which is called The Less Than Perfect Child. And then you have another one, which is more, I guess, relative to what we were talking about today, which is Smarter Next Year.
That's correct.
Okay. And they could be found on Amazon for people who are looking for them.
Yeah, sure. You can get them anywhere, Amazon, a bookstore.
You want to give a
online.
quick synopsis on both of them for our audience, so this way they can get a little bit of a feel for what it is.
Well, basically what we talked about the Smarter Next Year is, what we talk about improving your cognitive ability. It is about sleep. It's about exercise. It's about medications. It's about, preventing brain trauma. It's about, vitamin deficiencies, which we didn't get a chance to talk about. Vitamin B12 is one of the biggest ones. Talk about toxic exposures. Things like heavy metals are so deleterious to your cognitive ability. Talk about alcohol. We talk about the full gamut that, we talked about here today, plus some others. And it's all listed, in the book. And the other one is it's more for, it's just sort of my story of my youth and what I went through. And it's really a story of encouragement for parents who have, children who, and I hate to use the word on the spectrum, because in my day, there was the spectrum. Well, the spectrum is the different colors of light,
Yeah.
that was the spectrum. That was called the spectrum today. But it's simply a story of encouragement for parents who have children with various problems, and to show that there could be, all kinds of different outcomes that are never predicted. And I know that, if you have a child or a teen, if you give somebody enough encouragement, if you give them enough love and you give them enough support, they will be able to reach their maximum potential. And that's all we can expect and ask of anyone. Just reach your maximum potential. Not everybody can be an Einstein. Just reach your maximum potential.
Well, we've already been at it for about an hour 10, and I want to make sure that I'm cognizant of your time, because I know you spend a lot of time speaking in front of people and charging them for it. So our audience got a very nice feel for the information that you bring, and I appreciate that, and I hope that they can really grab onto it. The information for how to reach you directly, which is your website, some links to the books, and how people can book you for a conversation for their company or for their organization or for their association will all be down there in the notes. And, before we leave, any parting remarks?
No, other than just love yourself. And as my buddy used to say, I don't mean to sound sexist, he would say, a good boy is a tired boy. So they never let me go to bed without being exhausted.
Well, I thank you for your time, and that's a wrap. Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you.
My pleasure, Bobby. Thank you very much.